The kingdom of Eldermere was ruled by Queen Eleanor, a woman of unmatched beauty and ruthless ambition. She ruled with an iron grip, ensuring that her court and kingdom feared her more than they loved her. But her greatest pride was not her kingdom, it was her daughter, Princess Beatrice. Beatrice had been raised with everything a royal child could want: wealth, beauty, and power. But with such privileges, she lacked humility, kindness, or any sense of duty to her people. She was spoiled, cruel, and vain, treating those beneath her as mere stepping stones for her own glory. The palace staff dreaded her presence. Servants who worked tirelessly were met only with scorn and insults. One afternoon, she stormed into the palace kitchens, where the cooks were preparing a grand feast. "This place reeks of filth," she sneered, lifting a delicate lace handkerchief to her nose. Her sharp gaze landed on an elderly cook who had served the royal family for decades. "How much longer must I tolerate these old, wrinkled faces?" The cook bowed, her hands trembling. "Your Highness, Beatrice's expression darkened. She grabbed a steaming bowl of broth from the counter and, with a wicked smile, tossed it onto the stone floor. "Clean it up, you old hag," she snapped, "or would you prefer I spill the next one on your head?" The poor woman knelt in silence, her back bent with age, as she wiped the mess with shaking hands. The other servants dared not speak. To defy Beatrice was to invite punishment. At court, Beatrice's cruelty was just as evident. She mocked noble women, ridiculing their dresses and laughing when they stumbled in their curtsies. At every royal gathering, she found new victims, sometimes a shy young lady who dared to speak, or a nobleman who stammered under her sharp tongue. But there was one person she despised most of all: Rosalind, the daughter of a palace maid. Rosalind was everything Beatrice was not. Though she had no noble blood, she carried herself with a quiet grace that drew admiration. Her golden hair shone in the sunlight, her blue eyes held warmth and intelligence, and despite being a servant, she had a dignity that even the Queen could not deny. The court whispered about Rosalind's beauty, comparing her to Beatrice. This infuriated the princess. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" Beatrice once spat at Rosalind in the palace gardens. "Just because the knights and noblemen stare at you." Rosalind lowered her eyes and curtsied. "I seek no trouble, your highness." Beatrice smirked and knocked over a basket of flowers at Rosalind's feet. "Then stay out of my sight." But fate had other plans. Prince Edmund of Ravengard had been betrothed to Princess Beatrice since childhood. His father and Queen Eleanor had arranged the match to strengthen their kingdoms. But Edmund had spent years abroad, training as a warrior and diplomat. When he finally returned, all of Eldermere awaited his arrival. Queen Eleanor hoped that marriage would tame Beatrice's arrogance and secure her power. The first meeting between the betrothed couple was held in the Grand Hall. Edmund was tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing green eyes that held wisdom beyond his years. He bowed politely. "Your Highness, it is an honor to meet you at last." Beatrice folded her arms, a smirk curling her lips. "You are much taller than I imagined, though I must say your attire is rather plain for a prince." Gasps rippled through the court. It was an insult. Edmund only smiled. "My travels have taught me to value practicality over vanity." Beatrice scoffed. "How dull!" She turned to her ladies-in-waiting, rolling her eyes. "Is this truly the man I am expected to wed? No wonder he was away for so long. He must have been too embarrassed to return." The women giggled. but Edmund's face remained unreadable. This was not the woman he would marry. And then his gaze found Rosalind. She stood quietly among the servants, arranging a bouquet of fresh roses. Unlike Beatrice, Rosalind commanded attention through kindness, not cruelty. Edmund was mesmerized. Prince Edmund found himself drawn to Rosalind. He often wandered the palace gardens, where she tended the queen's flowers. Their conversations were soft, filled with laughter. Beatrice noticed. One afternoon, she found them beneath the willow tree, speaking in hushed tones. "You?" Beatrice stormed toward Rosalind, her face twisted with rage. "How dare you speak to my betrothed?" Rosalind quickly curtsied. "Forgive me, your highness, I meant no disrespect." "Silence!" Beatrice's hand shot out, striking Rosalind across the cheek. "You are nothing but a servant. If I see you near the prince again, I will have you whipped." Edmund stepped between them. "That is enough." Beatrice glared. "You defend her?" "I defend an innocent woman from your cruelty," Edmund said coldly. "Is this the kind of queen you wish to be, one who rules through fear?" Beatrice smirked. "You think I care what you think? You will marry me whether you like it or not." Edmund met her gaze. "I will never marry you." That night, Rosalind was thrown into the dungeons, accused of sorcery. Her crime, capturing the heart of the prince. Edmund refused to let Rosalind suffer. In the dead of night, he freed her, and with his most loyal knights, fled to Ravengard. Upon arrival, he renounced his engagement and declared his love for Rosalind. The scandal shook Eldermere. Queen Eleanor's power crumbled. Beatrice was abandoned, her cruelty finally catching up to her. Without the alliance with Ravengard, Eldermere fell into turmoil. Queen Eleanor was forced to step down. Beatrice, now unwanted, faded into obscurity. Some say she lived in exile, a forgotten princess without a throne. Meanwhile, in Ravengard, Rosalind was crowned queen. She ruled with kindness, ensuring no servant suffered as she once had. One evening, as she walked through the royal gardens, Edmund took her hand. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. Rosalind smiled, not for a single moment. And so, the humble maiden became a queen, while the cruel princess became nothing more than a forgotten tale. For in the end, the world remembers the roses, not the thorns.